go to Vegas without you.
Yeah, I'm coming. I just gotta get some headphones for the flight. But which one should I take? Last year, when we pitted the Sony WH-1000XM3 up against the Bose QC35 Series 2, the Sonys won because they had the better performance technology. But Bose still walked away with a close second because they had far better build quality, far better fit, and they looked much better than the Sonys. And it looks like Sony took that to heart because now we have the all-new Sony WH-1000XM3. So, whether Sony 1000XM3 finally the complete package, or the Bose QC35 Series 2 still have some fight left in them. The Sony 1000XM3s are the newer headphones here because they were released in September of 2018, whereas the Bose QC35 Series 2 are exactly 1 year older than the Sonys. And both of these headphones currently retail for $350. If you want to pick either of these headphones up, I'll have links in the description below, and if you use the links, it really helps out the channel. I highly suggest you check them out because Sony's headphones routinely go on sale, so you might get lucky. And if you want to learn more about either of these headphones, then watch their full reviews. And also, check out the numerous shelf down below. First, let's talk about the accessories that come included with both of these headphones. Both of these headphones come included with hard shell carrying cases, but personally, I do prefer Sony's case. Even though Bose's case is slightly smaller, I like Sony's case because of the scratch-resistant fabric body, and I really like the built-in storage compartment. Before we talk about the included cables, we first need to talk about the ports on these headphones because they're completely opposite. Thankfully, the 1000XM3s now have a USB-C port which is strictly used for charging, and there's a 3.5mm audio jack, whereas the Bose still have a micro USB port for charging and it has a 2.5mm audio jack. The M3's included charging cable is much nicer than Bose's charging cable, but I hate that it's much shorter. But both of these headphones do get a strike when it comes to their included audio cables. Both of these cables are cheap, short, and thin, and even though the M3's audio cable is slightly better than Bose's audio cable, it's still a downgrade from the M2's audio cable. I know that for most people, the included audio cables aren't a factor these days, but for content creators, it could matter. But now with all of that out of the way, let's get to the main attractions. Even though technologically inferior, the Bose QC35s have remained a favorite of most consumers because of their fit, design, and tried and tested build quality. Because in comparison, last year's Sony 1000XM2, their ear cups were much more cramped, they looked much bulkier, build quality wasn't on the same level as Bose, and they had to shake off the headband cracking issue that was prominent on the first generation Sony MDR1000X. And from the looks of it, it looks like Sony took steps to improve both the build quality and design of the 1000XM3. There's much less creaking whenever you flex the M3's headband, the ear cups swivel much smoother, and tolerances are much tighter. The M3s also have a much more minimalist design to them because of their muted color, soft touch ear cups, and all of the screws and wires have been nicely hidden away, whereas the Bose QC35s have a much more industrial look to them. They look like they're completely made out of metal, but they're not, and their screws and hinges are completely exposed. Even though Sony obviously took steps to improve the build quality on their new headphones, only time will tell if they're going to be able to hold up as well as Bose's headphones do. Personally, I am confident in the new build quality of the M3s because after a year of heavy usage, my M2s have held up just fine. But perhaps more importantly, the fit of the 1000XM3s has been greatly improved from the M2s to better compete against the Bose QC35s. The ear cups on the M3s are much more spacious than the ear cups on the M2s, and there's much less padding against your head, which means overheating is much less of an issue. Since the ear cups on the M3s are much more spacious, and since the headphones themselves weigh in at 255 grams, 20 grams lighter than the M2s, extended wear is not a problem whatsoever. But some people will still find the Bose QC35s a little more comfortable to wear than the 1000XM3s. Even though the padding on the M3s is very similar to the Bose QC35s, Bose's ear cups are much deeper than Sony's ear cups. Wearing the Bose QC35s is like wearing your favorite oversized hoodie. You have more than enough room to move around, and since the faux leather on the ear cups feels much more luxurious than the faux leather on the M3s, the Bose feel a little cozier. Whereas wearing the Sonys is like wearing a form-fitting tracksuit. You have room to move around, but the cut is much slimmer. Obviously, both of these headphones are big head approved, but I feel that if you have larger ears or ears that stick out a lot, then you'll still be better off going with the Bose QC35s. But another thing I like about the 1000XM3 is the new headband design. It's much more low profile compared to the M2 and Bose's headband, and it's also much thinner. Okay, now with design and fit out of the way, let's talk about tech specs. The Bose QC35 Series 2 has an advertised battery life of 20 hours, and they also feature fast charging. If you plug the Bose QC35s in for 15 minutes from a dead battery, they're going to get you 2.5 hours of playback time. The Sony 1000XM3s also have fast charging, but instead of 2.5 hours of playback time, they're going to get you 5 hours of playback time from just 10 minutes of charging. The M3s also have an advertised battery life of 30 hours, and that's with ANC turned on. You can always squeeze out a little bit more battery life out of these headphones if you use them with ANC turned off. And for me, the M3s usually last me about 2 weeks in between charges. And when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, things are also a little different. Both of these headphones have stable connections that don't cut out, which is good, but they do have a bit of latency, so they aren't the best for watching YouTube videos. But with the Bose QC35s, you can be connected to 2 devices at a time, which makes hot swapping much easier if you're a power user. Whereas with the M3s, you can only be connected to 1 device at a time. But you do get the benefit of Sony's DSEE and OLED technologies, which allows you to enjoy high-res audio without having to use a wired connection. But now let's talk about the active noise cancellation on both of these headphones. Like I've said in the past, the reason I liked the Sony 1000XM2 so much was because they were able to block out the most amount of noise with little to no cabin pressure, even more than the Bose QC35s. And I don't know how Sony did it, but the new 1000XM3s are able to block out a little more noise across the board than the previous M2s. Even though the Bose QC35s do a good job of blocking out a good amount of road noise, aka constant low frequency sounds, they do struggle to block out random higher frequency sounds like the chatter you would hear at your local coffee shop. But my biggest issue with Bose's active noise cancellation is that there is a considerable amount of discomfort when you use it. I know that some people have said that they get used to Bose's ANC technology after a while, but that's never been the case for me. Personally, I either feel discomfort on my eardrums or a slight pain on the back of my eyeballs, so after a while of wearing the Bose QC35s with ANC turned on, I just got a headache. Whereas I never have any of these symptoms with Sony's headphones. But another reason I like Sony's active noise cancellation so much is because it does a much better job of preventing wind noise in your music when you're wearing these headphones outdoors. Since the ANC microphones on the 1000XM3s are slightly recessed, it's much harder for wind to directly hit them, and as a result, you rarely get any in the background of your music. Whereas since the ANC microphones on the Bose are so exposed, wind noise is a little more common. But another reason I like Sony's ANC so much is because you can pump in some of the ambient sound around you. So it's kind of like having open back headphones. And this feature is great for safety if you're walking around in the city. But the trick thing about ambient mode is that it's not just blindly pumping in all of the ambient sound around you. It's still selective of what it lets in. So if you're walking around in the city and if there's a random bang or a siren, the headphones will automatically block everything out again. So you don't have to worry about jump scares or going deaf. Whereas with Bose, you can only set your active noise cancellation to high, low, or off. When it comes to sound quality, both of these headphones are meant for easy listening. The Bose QC35s has a sound signature that puts an emphasis on the mids and vocals, but I feel the bass does leave something to be desired. I feel that the Bose can sometimes sound a little bright, and if the vocals really get going, then they can overpower the rest of the song. But my biggest problem with the Bose QC35s is that the bass bottoms out half of the time, whereas the bass on the Sony WH-1000XM3 can get significantly deeper and is cleaner than the bass on both the WH-1000XM2 and Bose QC35. You're not going to get bass head levels of bass on the WH-1000XM3 where your head is just rattling all the time, but the cleaner bass of the M3s does make listening to music with the M3s more enjoyable. And through Sony's headphones app, you can also adjust the EQ of the M3s so you can make them sound however you want depending on the type of music you listen to, which is something you can't do with the Bose unless you use a third-party app. And when it comes to controlling music playback on either of these headphones, things are also very different. The Bose QC35s have a set of physical buttons on the back of the right ear cup. They're easy to use, easy to find, and easy to tell apart. Besides me wanting them to have a little more tactile feedback, they're perfectly fine. The Sonys, on the other hand, have a touchpad on their right ear cup. You double tap to play or pause your music, swipe up or down to adjust your volume, and swipe front or back to skip or go back a track. And after you get used to them, the touch controls on the Sony WH-1000XM3 are very easy to use. Since Sony's touchpad is so accurate, I'm indifferent when it comes to choosing between either of the control methods found on these headphones. They both work just fine. But the thing Sony's touchpad has over Bose is quick attention. If you fully cover the touchpad, the headphones will pause your music and pump in all of the ambient sound so you can talk to someone without having to take your headphones off. I'm telling you from experience, do not underestimate how useful this feature can be. But one thing that I hate about both of these headphones is their lack of a dedicated Google Assistant button. Both of these headphones have Google Assistant integration, and the Bose even has Alexa integration. But in order to use these features, you have to sacrifice either of these headphones' extra physical buttons that would otherwise be used to manually cycle through your ANC settings like this.
Noise cancelling. Ambient sound. Ambient sound control off.
And not having this functionality can get pretty annoying because I switch from ANC to ambient sound mode on the M3s on a regular basis. Now, I'm fully aware that if you press and hold on either of these headphones, you can summon your voice assistant. But pressing and holding and then talking isn't as efficient as having a dedicated Google Assistant button where you just press and talk like this. Set the studio light to blue.
Okay, changing the studio light to blue.
Set the studio light to green.
You got it, changing the studio light to green.
Set the studio light to red.
Okay, changing the studio light to red.
What's the weather like for New York City on Saturday?
Saturday in New York City, it'll be mostly sunny, with a high of 80 and a low of 67. It's 6:22 p.m. You don't have new notifications right now.
So what I'm getting at is, I do like that both of these headphones have Google Assistant integration, but I wish these headphones had an extra physical button so that we don't have to sacrifice the manual noise cancellation setting button. Cause having to open the app on your phone every time you want to cycle between your noise cancellation settings can get pretty annoying. And finally, I don't usually do this in a versus video, but here's the microphone test. And the microphone on the Sony WH-1000XM3 does sound better than the microphone found on the Bose QC35 Series 2. Because the microphone on the Bose QC35 Series 2 does have a considerable amount of static, so I wouldn't recommend taking phone calls with these headphones. So for the time being, I think it's safe to say that the new Sony WH-1000XM3 are currently the best active noise cancelling headphones on the market right now. Just like the 1000XM2s from last year, the 1000XM3 outright outperformed the Bose QC35 Series 2 when it comes to battery life, features, sound quality, and active noise cancellation performance. But more importantly, the 1000XM3s improved where the 1000XM2s fell short, and as a result, the fit and build quality of the 1000XM3s is finally on par of that of the Bose QC35s. The only reason I would pick up the Bose QC35 now is because you need the more spacious ear cups, multi-device connectivity is a must for you really want that Alexa integration, or just for plain looks. But for me, the Sony WH-1000XM3 are going to be my daily drivers from now on. Now remember, if you want to learn more about either of these headphones, then please watch their full reviews. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. Support the channel by clicking on the links down below, and I'll catch you next time.